Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Freedom Hub's presentation of the free market cash patient. I'm your host, Jeff Cantor, along with my special co-host, Dr. Marilyn Singleton. We are totally part of the Disruptors intersection, and we definitely want to encourage you to check out our site. We also want to emphasize that there are some issues in the medical world these days, and sadly, this individual in the middle's got a million new names. And to show you how confusing it gets, this is just the low-income individual program, so that's going to be an inexpensive proposition. And now everybody's starting to figure out, hey, I got some sunk costs here. My monthly health insurance premium is bigger than my mortgage, so maybe I should get some return on my investment. And as it's continued along with information going left, right, and center and keep ramping it up, that suddenly it's starting to look a little negative, to say the least. So it's going to be a situation we're going to need to deal with. So we're going to find out more about that today. But when you kick over to the website, your-mp.com, and hover over home, there's the webinars. And then very importantly, we want to point out the continuing the conversation, because that's your chance to connect with any of the speakers that we engage in, because there's a lot of great topics, and you're going to want to connect with a lot of these great people. And this is your way to do it. But on that note, let's get into today a little bit. So in this instance, I want to introduce our co-host. And so I have today Dr. Singleton here, which is a really nice treat. She's a retired anesthesiologist, and she was a past president of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. And then on top of that, she has been very involved with law. She ended up going to Berkeley because she couldn't read the Affordable Care Act and needed to know more about that. So ended up dropping out of medicine for a minute and started pursuing legal. And then on top of that, because of that, I should say, she's done articles and been on TV and a variety of other things. So we're really excited to have her today because she's going to introduce our guest. Dr. Singleton, if you would.
Yes, well, hello, everybody. I am just thrilled to have Dr. Girnita here. At AAPS, we have worked so hard to get people to get away from third-party practice. And this had been so focused on primary care. And so it's so exciting to hear this board-certified rheumatologist, internist, MD, PhD, fellowships in immunology, my goodness, rheumatology. And she's founded now Rheumatologist on Call. That's Rheumatologist on Call. And so this is direct specialty care. So this is just really right there on the edge. Not only that, she's taken specialized courses in the area of nutrition and mindfulness. And we all know that's so important in medicine, and in regular medical school, it's so ignored. And as we've all learned through the years, these are things that are so important to patients. So I tell you, this woman is just an all-around doctor. Not only is she brilliant, but she's caring, and I just can't wait to hear her talk. So Dr. Girnita, it's all yours.
Oh, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. I think this is a unique opportunity for me to show that specialists can offer the care through a direct approach to patients. And as you were mentioning, people talked a lot about direct primary care as being able to provide care directly to patients. And I have to admit, for many years, I knew about direct primary care movement, but although I envy them, I was somehow on the edge about starting something similar. So I would like to share with you my screen, and I will share with you a few data that I think it's important for people that are not part of medical work day by day to understand. So today we're going to talk about the emergence of direct specialty care in the United States. And I would like to start with reminding you that between 1998 and 2019, this is a graph that I was able to find, we are able today to afford more expensive cars, to afford more clothing, more cell phone services, but the average American people, they afford less and less medical care services, and the price of college tuitions and especially hospital services increased tremendously, over 200% compared to 1998. And not only the cost for the workers to pay for their insurance increase over years, but also the employer contribution increased tremendously. If you look at this graph in 2009, the employer contribution was about $9,000. But if you look into 2019, the employer contribution increased to about $14,000. And the same happened for the workers. They started with, when I came here, my worker contribution was about $3,000 per year. Now it's more than $6,000 per year. And what happened in the traditional healthcare? You all know that patients have to support the higher cost. You all know that they are waiting for longer period of time to see patients, and they have less access to specialists. They pay co-payments, and not very rare, they will receive surprise bills. And those surprise bills will show higher prices in labs, imaging, and medication. And what happened to physicians on the other side? They have less and less time with the patient. They spend more time documenting than any other time, and they get less reimbursement for their efforts. They have no control on the costs that are passed to the patients. And actually, as a physician in a traditional system, I had no idea about the cost of my consultation, the labs, or the imaging that I was ordering, which I think it's not the right way for a physician. And on top of that, we don't have too much control on our schedule. So we all know that the premium increased, the deductible increased tremendously, but that did not translate into a better access. That did not translate into transparency of cost. And my question to you is, who benefits from this increase in the cost? So when I look up the number of specialists that are currently practicing in US, in 2019, the Association of American Medical Colleges published an article that showed that there were about 900,000 physicians that are specialists in the US. But some specialties are very rare. I mean, they have very few specialists. And I pointed here a few of the specialists with the least number of physicians, like allergy or immunology or rheumatology or pulmonary or sports medicine or thoracic surgery. But when you look at pediatric subspecialties, those numbers are looking even worse. So patients, of course, they will have to wait much longer to see a specialist. And I was able to find data just from 2012 that the average time to be seen by an allergist is about 60 days, or the average time to be seen by a gastroenterologist goes up to 100 days, or the average time to be seen by a neurosurgeon, it's about 100 days. Or in my specialty, the average time to see a rheumatologist, it's about 90 days. And do you think this time became better, or these days we have a shorter period of time? It's actually worse. And what happened for the physician? That translated into an increase in the load of patients per day. Every specialist in the United States, they have to see between 20 and 30 patients every day. And the physician shortage will actually get worse. These are data published by the American College of Medicine, and they predicted that over the next 10, 15 years, the number of physicians that are needed in the United States will increase to about 139,000. And that will be valid both for primary care physicians, but also for specialists. The Medicare patient population is also increasing. And keep in mind that in our days, in a medical practice, about 46% of patients are Medicare patients. And that is expected to increase to about 55%. And many of the physicians that are active today, actually in 10 years, will retire, but the population will increase. And the most affected areas will remain the rural areas. And what's happening with the people that graduate? Maybe you know, but the Medicare is the largest supporter for the graduate medical education. And I would like to draw attention about this report that I was able to find from the National Resident Matching Program. In 2021, they released about 38,000 positions, but there were 48,000 applicants. So many medical school graduates remain without being matched. And that happened because in 1997, Medicare published the Balanced Budget Act that actually put a cap on the number of residents that Medicare could support. And those numbers remain the same over the last 20 years. And actually, just this year, they increased the number with just 1,000 new Medicare-funded positions. And after you graduate a residency program, you will encounter a lot of other regulatory licensing issues. Each state has a medical board, and they will require you to license in that state. And that's something that I don't understand quite well, because once you come here, you go through the same, accredited program everywhere, which is something that it should be recognized all over the United States. And many physicians spend a lot of dollars to get licensed in multiple states, including myself. But that doesn't end there, because every 1 to 2 years, you have to renew the license. So you have to spend more dollars there. During the pandemic, the Medicare released a law that temporarily raised the limitations in many of the US states. But now the old requirements are coming back, and you cannot practice in multiple states, even in the pandemic. And over time, over the last 20 years, Medicare decreased the reimbursement to physicians. And this report is related to emergency medicine, but that decrease in reimbursements happened across the board. And they reported a decrease of about 30% from 2000 to 2020 after adjusting for inflation. And this translates into a lot of the physician burnout. A few years ago, nobody was talking about physician stress and burnout. But today, we do recognize that burnout is a problem, and it's a problem of a system. And burnout affects approximately 1/2 of the physicians in practice. And burnout is actually the result of all these changes, and will be in consequence responsible for more medical errors, for lower quality of care, for higher costs, and overall a worse outcome. And unfortunately, many physicians, even in the first year of residency, will start showing signs of depression. And over the course of their training, about 20 to 40% of residents will report signs of depressions. And what's very, very sad is that approximately 300 physicians die by suicide per year, and these rates will increase. So what's the answer? And again, this might be just one small problem that we can solve, but coming back or going back to direct care, not reinventing the wheel, might be the answer for many of the physicians that are active today. I will present you a little bit about my specialty because here I understand the things the most. As I mentioned before, rheumatology is a specialty in where there is low supply, but there is huge demand. There is a shortage of rheumatologists in the US, and the regular waiting time for a rheumatologist is between 4 and 6 months. But as you can see in this graph, the CDC showed that in the next 10, 20 years, the number of patients with arthritis will increase from 52 or 54 million up to about 78 million. So that means that more patients will need a physician. And not only that, but because rheumatology is a specialty with a lot of gray area, a lot of patients are looking for a second opinion. And those patients that are already carrying a diagnosis in rheumatology might just need to have treatment monitoring and nothing else. So I created this practice with the idea to broaden the access to rheumatology, and I'm currently active in 9 US states. And my idea was not only to provide care to the patient, but to bypass all the intermediates that are between the physicians and the patient. And instead of keeping the patient to wait for many, many months, I aim to give them a consultation in less than a week. I spend more time with the patient. You know, in the regular medical system, the time with physician is limited. It's between 7 and 15 minutes. I spend about 60 minutes with the patient. I have direct communication with them, and I welcome all the patients. I do not, ask patients about their insurance card. And if the patient needs an urgent appointment, I am able to offer an urgent appointment. And on top of that, I wanted to make things simple and discount labs, imaging, and some of the medication I was able to discount for the patients. And I will give you a patient story because I think that that will be reflective about what I am trying to do. So I had a patient that came to me for an evaluation for an autoimmune disease. And like every other patient that will require something like that, we will order, besides the fact that we'll do a very thorough evaluation, we will have to order laboratory, we will have to order imaging tests, and that will translate into a huge cost for the patient. In the traditional system, the cost of the regular labs in rheumatology will be about $1,300. In my practice was about $120. In the traditional healthcare system, if you want to order an X-ray, an MRI, or a CT scan, all the costs will translate between $5,000 and $10,000. In my practice, would translate up to $1,400. And when it comes to medication, I just put a couple of medication that we usually order, and the cost could be reflected between $500 in the traditional healthcare compared to $97 in my practice. So if you sum everything up, the cost of the consultation plus labs, imaging, and medication for a patient in rheumatology will and can go up to $13,000. But in my practice, in a direct specialty care practice, it can go up to a maximum of $2,000. So I would like you to multiply these numbers with 52 million arthritis patients and 23 million autoimmune disease patients, and you will be surprised how much savings you will have just from my specialty. So what I envisioned was to connect with more specialists like me, because I'm not the only one who's doing this kind of care. I was able in the last 2 years to connect with a lot of other specialists that were like rare gems in their own community doing direct specialty care. But instead of being alone, we wanted to scale up this direct specialty movement, and we started this organization called Direct Specialty Care Alliance. And our values, because we talked a lot about what should be the values that will distinguish us from other organizations, will be to put the patient first and be transparent about their prices and make the patient accountable and the doctor accountable, and make the doctors autonomous, and make the doctors or the practices that they have accessible to patients. So we started this organization, and we believe that we are here for our patients only. And our mission and vision will be to lead this movement of specialist physicians in becoming independent and teach them how to provide direct care services to patients. Because many physicians do not know that they can do that, or do not even think that it is possible to offer direct care services to patients. We also want to provide guidance to those specialists to be educated about how is the process to become independent and become a direct specialty care practice. And we want, of course, to see more and more independent physician-led practices that will offer quality care and accessible and transparent costs. We started to identify all of these physicians, and they are across the country. We just listed a few on the website on our map, and we hope to add more and more over the next few months. So the advantages of being part of this organization will be to create this community of physicians that will provide direct care, to educate other physicians about this option to practice medicine, and to make those physicians available for patients that are interested in this free market, and obviously make it available for employers that are interested in this kind of services. And if you want to collaborate as a direct specialty care physician, you should know where are your fellows across the country if you want to help the patients. That will be all, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity.
As usual, another great guest, but a quick diversion. You'll notice that our full name is the Marketplace for Health, Wealth, and Freedom. Well, let's talk about your health for a moment. If you'd like to escape from the stranglehold of insurance and be able to see alternative doctors or go across state lines for care, then you definitely need to take a look at patientempowerment.mpb.health and see if that's the fix you've been looking for. Now, let's get back to the show. Fantastic. Well, for anybody that has some questions, if you raise your hand would be great. I would say that you're in rheumatology. What other types of practices are being attracted to what you're doing at this point?
Jeff, it's hard to hear you.
Microphone was in a bad location.
Oh,
how's that? A little better? Sorry
that's
about
great.
that.
Perfect.
It was a hearing test. That's all.
Oh,
I was saying, what other types of, you're in rheumatology, what other types of practices are being attracted to what you're doing at this point, do you see?
I do see cardiology very invested into this movement. I see endocrinology. I see neurology. There are podiatrists that want to do this type of care. Urology is also interested in doing direct care. And I think a lot of the medical specialties could be very well done in this kind of direct market.
Are you seeing an increase? Is it starting to grow a little faster now in more recent times?
I think so. I think people started to realize they can do that. And I can tell you that I see, and I talk to a lot of specialist physicians that they are considering to jump on this movement.
Excellent. Dr. Singleton?
yes. Well, I have a couple of things. One, do you think this whole coronavirus epidemic has changed people's attitude, physicians as well as patients, as far as wanting to just do direct care and get out of the big system?
Yes, I think the pandemic showed us a couple of things. It showed us that we can be non-conventional, and we can try to experience more types of care. And the pandemic pushed the limits and pushed the telemedicine into into the future. Actually, for many years, I was interested in telemedicine, but the employer where I was working was not interested because it was not able to be reimbursed for the visits. And the fact that the pandemic came also opened the mind of patients to choose something that will be comfortable for them. They didn't want to get out of the house, especially for my practice. There was no need to get out of the house. And because of access through telemedicine, they were able to get the care that they needed.
Thank you. And then I have one little medical question before we go to another hand that's raised is, do you find that more people are having autoimmune problems now than, maybe 15 years ago? Have you seen it gradually go up?
Yes, unfortunately, there is an increase in the numbers of autoimmune diseases. And we as rheumatologists believe that the current environment that we live on, from stress to the exposure to highly processed food, extra sugar in everything, that is contributing to the increase in the prevalence of autoimmune diseases.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Dr.
Okay.
Campbell, I see your hand up.
Hey, yeah. As usual, Charles and Jeff keep finding wonderful speakers, and that's a great presentation. I have a comment and then a question. My comment would be, a lot of people in the financial services industry, there's been such an emphasis on fiduciary duty. If you work for a brokerage company, you have to work for the client's interest and not the brokerage company's interest. And if you're selling an insurance product, the same thing. You want to have your client's interest first. I think one of the untold stories of what you're doing is you're taking away that fiduciary conflict. And I don't know if fiduciary is the right word, but I know people who have been in independent practice, then they go to work for a hospital and they have to use the hospital's labs, the hospital's x-rays, CTs. Doesn't matter if they're not as good. And they have to refer to the hospital specialist, not the person who would be best for the patient's care. So have you thought about that? And is that something that has gained any traction in your circles?
Actually, people are very poorly educated about what their options are. And when I started to offer those discounted prices to my patients, and although this is a small impact at the scale that we are talking, they are all shocked that their own insurance, with their own insurance, the cost of the labs is so much higher than the cost that I offer them. And despite the fact that they have insurance, and 99% of my patients have insurance, okay, which they call, I have a great insurance. This is the initial conversation that I have with my patient is like, I have this great insurance that is supposed to cover the cost of my care, but then I have to pay $7,000 in the deductible before my insurance will kick in. And then when I start the conversation and I tell them, this is the price that you're going to pay through me, they don't even care about the insurance anymore. And that's sad because they still pay those money. And I don't have to I don't gain any money from doing those discounted prices, but I feel happy that patients will have this opportunity to get that discounted price. So I think that in time, people will realize that this kind of option exists and they will like to try it. And I go where I feel it's best for my patients. I don't go, I work with very respected labs and very respected group of radiologists. I try to select the best that I could find for my patients.
Yeah, I think that's the hidden benefit that maybe people aren't aware is I'm working for you. I'm not working for my hospital overlord. And then my question to you would be, do you see people in private practice who want to do a blended approach or put one foot into the kind of thing you're doing, but also transition away from insurance rather than all at once?
So what about your wealth? If your money could actually talk to you, would you listen to it? Well, with the DNA Network Academy, your money actually can talk to you. And it's going to tell you just what it told this client. This family had over 24 debts, mortgages, car loans, the works. They were on track to take 20 years to pay it all off and instead did it in 8.5. Plus, they did it without refinancing, making more money, or even changing their lifestyle. So find out for yourself with a free analysis that is completely confidential. No personal information, no social security numbers, no credit checks, none of that nonsense. But what is exciting is that the outcome of that report you receive is a guaranteed outcome for you. To get that report, head on over to bit.ly/debt to wealth. You will arrive at this simple form. Fill it in as simple as lender number 1 and credit card number 2. What really matters is the accuracy of your numbers. You'll be able to see that if instead of 20 years or whatever your number is, that you may actually be out of debt and on your way to wealth in as little as 6.3 years like this client.
That is actually happening every day. A lot of physicians that are interested to transition into direct care, they actually start with a hybrid practice, and they want to transition slowly from this type of payment, from the payment through the insurance companies to a direct care practice, but they need time to go from the status that they are in right now to the status of a direct care practice. I just took the bull approach.
Obviously, you didn't regret that. So for those that are trying to do that little half in and half out, are they getting any pushback from the insurance companies, kind of beating them up to not leave the ranch?
So if they are contracted with an insurance company, they are not able to receive cash from those patients that are under that plan. But if they stop working or stop the contract with a certain insurance, then they are able to get cash from those patients. And what I hear from many of them, they try to look at the numbers of whoever pays the worst, and they try to get rid of those first. This is their approach.
Perfect. Yeah, the market always works. Well, we have another great little guest sitting in today. Paula, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, and Dina Girnita is she's an Uber doc, and she's one of our stars, so we're very excited. So just to address Dr. Campbell's question about that hybrid model, what we see on UberDoc are a lot of doctors that are actually trying to kind of dip their toe in the world of direct pay. That's what UberDoc is all about. It's the baby step. Okay, just give us a seat in your waiting room. You can still have your insurance patients. And oh, by the way, you can put a few patients in there that are direct pay. Try it, you'll like it. So that we've seen that. From the consumer side, it's very interesting. Because we've been doing this now for a few years, and we have a vast network of doctors that are direct pay specialists. It's the patients really have to learn about direct pay, and it really will take the doctors to teach them. Patients will go where the doctors are. You talk about the triangle of trust. What is trust? Trust is empathy, trust is logic, and trust is authenticity. Only doctors hold trust in the world of medicine. You think of those three things, nothing else does. The insurer, the networks, no one holds the trust from a patient except a doctor. So doctors have to be reminded that they are important. There are only 900,000 of them out there, that they really do hold the cards in this relationship, and they have the control. They just don't quite know it. And I think that this is, what we're seeing is, as Dr. Girnita said, over the last few years, what I've noticed is that more and more doctors are willing to take cash, willing to be honest with their patients. It's not a violation of an insurance contract. As long as you don't bill insurance for that encounter, it's under a cash payment is not under insurance jurisdiction. If they come in and they want to pay cash instead of using their insurance card, they have every right to do that. Only Medicare patients, there's a 2016 guideline there that says you can't bill Medicare for something a Medicare patient's entitled to. But even those lines are being worked. I was going to say that what's most impressive, and I wanted to have you kind of have your mind begin to think this way, Deanna. And the question I have is that I look at your network and I say, okay, this network is across the country, right? We're building these tentacles of this network. It isn't just, isn't just our platform. It's your network of people that are professionals working together. Do you see at a moment when you can cross state lines in a point of care consultation? So I'm, say, a doctor in Massachusetts with a patient that needs a rheumatologist. I can do a three-way with you. It can be handled through a cash model. And now that patient is going to be treated by the point of care doctor, and you're treating someone who's technically out of your state licensure. However, it's point of care consultation. In other words, creating this virtual network of specialists that work together. I think that is profoundly powerful, because then that's the kind of thing that you could, bring into the rural areas. Health vouchers is a whole kind of world that you can open up with that.
Yes, I believe that will be possible in the near future. And I know from my discussions with these doctors that they are willing to cross the line of the states and do, in the beginning, peer-to-peer consultations, which are so needed for the patients, especially in rural communities. Or, there are, unfortunately, a lot of areas without any primary care physicians, not only specialists, but they lack primary care physicians as well. And when we look at the coasts, the West Coast, the East Coast, there are more specialists there. But when you look at the Middle America or the South part of America, there is just a few specialists there. So there is huge need, and I think telemedicine could help tremendously to cover for this shortage of specialists across the country.
That's great.
Fantastic. Sydney, see your hands up. You have to unmute yourself there.
Hey everyone, Dinah, great talk. Thank you so much. I had a question for you. From what you've seen and your experience in rheumatology and that specific specialty, are there any requirements for a referral, requirements put in place by individual states? So I know one of the kind of barriers to direct specialty care is the perception, and in some specialties and for some services, the need of a referral before or from a primary care physician to a specialist, using like MRI for an example. And sometimes you need a referral or at least someone to order that MRI. Does that exist for rheumatology or most, if any, other specialties that you've seen? And I know it varies from state to state, but just curious in California. Or...
For rheumatology, there is no requirement. I mean, there is no need for a formal referral from primary care physicians to specialists. Traditionally, to a specialist, you have to get through the primary care physician. But actually, patients that they get a referral from their primary care physician, the first thing that they check is their insurance network. And when they find out that they cannot be seen for many months, then they start look online to find options for them. And I don't ask for any referral since I don't interact with any of the insurance companies. So I don't think the referral is needed in a direct specialty care practice, as long as you don't deal with any insurance and you just deal with the patient, and the contract is directly with the patient.
Got it. Very good. Thank you.
Excellent. I was going to just investigate, Dr. Weiland. Did you maybe have a little comment there yourself?
Yeah, sorry if the background noise is too much, but Yeah, I mean, I think Dinah and I have talked quite a bit about this, and I think that the reality is it's great what you're doing, and I think that more and more, the forces that are at work and the realization. I mean, personally, I had kind of realized long before the pandemic that the corporate hospital systems were kind of a circus, and the pandemic only kind of has made more people realize that. And I think that you see more and more education for patients, education for physicians, and what have you, about other alternative options and such ways to break free. I think ultimately, again, the highest quality, most cost-effective care is found between an independent physician and a patient, and getting rid of all the middlemen is the best way to do that. So that's all I would say.
To enjoy this and all past shows, head over to our website at your-mp.com. When you get there, look for the Home tab. When you hover over it, select Webinars from the drop-down. And when you get there, then scroll down near the bottom to find the 4 platforms where we archive all the shows. Here they are on Brighteon. And also remember to use our Continuing the Conversation to connect with all of our great guests. Excellent. It's interesting. We were talking before we began today. I had a doctor that retired out of his practice because the overhead was so high, and he ended up working at this big hospital operation here in town. And after a while, he said, I figured out I was the greeter at Walmart. I went from being a doctor to that because it was like, okay, you need this lab, that's down this aisle, you need that test. He says, that's all I was to do. I had 15 minutes to figure out what I could order for this person, and that was my whole function, which is really pretty sad to see. So that was great. Well, I have to tell you, Diana, that was a really fantastic presentation, and exciting to see more and more of this on the grow. And obviously that's our purpose here, is to kind of get more action in this regard. So I want to personally thank you for today. I know Dr. Singleton wanted to give you a little hearty thanks.
And one thing I'd love to say, I think of your whole presentation, when you said how much time you spent with the patient when you first met them, that just defines good medicine. And talk about just like the good old days. It is. And I just hope with more people like you and the way you're able to express what you do, that people will realize that this is the way of the future. It's not the past, it is the future. And I thank you for what you're doing and for your presentation.
And I would like to thank you for this opportunity to present my practice and the project with the direct specialty care movement.